Sometimes the life we think we're building brick by brick is only an illusion, held together by trust and shattered by betrayal. For Claire Bennett, that illusion collapsed in a single, unforgiving moment. Pregnant mistress moves in cheating, husband kicks out wife, but a billionaire saves her. They say every perfect marriage hides its cracks, but for Claire Bennett, those cracks turned into craters overnight. One moment, she was the cherished wife of a self-made tech millionaire, Logan Bennett, living in a luxurious estate beyond her wildest dreams. The next, she found her world shattering before her eyes. A devastating betrayal, a pregnant mistress demanding her place, and an ultimatum that drove Claire out of her own home. Confused, heartbroken, and left with nowhere to go, Claire prepared to face a cruel reality. Yet, amid the darkness, a mysterious billionaire, Julian Cross, emerged, a beacon of hope she never saw coming. Claire Bennett had always prided herself on being practical. Even when she married Logan Bennett, a man with soaring ambitions and charm that rivaled any Hollywood heartthrob, her feet remained planted firmly on the ground. She recalled the early days of their relationship, dinners in quaint cafes, late-night walks by the riverside discussing their future, the ring he presented on a crisp autumn evening. She was an ordinary girl from Asheville, North Carolina, and he was an aspiring tech entrepreneur determined to carve out an empire. Their union felt like a romantic fairy tale, one that promised a lifetime of excitement. Yet deep down, Claire suspected that if something appeared too good to be true, it probably was. Over the past year, Logan had grown distant. Busy might have been an acceptable excuse. He managed multiple startups and chaired innovation conferences across the country, but it was more than that. A subtle coldness replaced his once warm eyes. Whenever Claire tried to discuss everyday matters, business dinners grew later and more frequent. Weekend getaways were postponed indefinitely, and the phone calls during his supposedly busy nights? She couldn't help noticing how hushed his tone became whenever she walked into the room. Still, Claire fought to keep doubt at bay. Marriage was sacred to her, and she had stood before friends and family promising to remain loyal, trusting, and forgiving, for better or for worse. Love, she had always believed, was an anchor, even when storms raged overhead. If Logan was going through something, a business crisis or personal stress, she wanted to be there for him. After all, that was her role as a wife. Yet Logan no longer confided in her, and she felt more like a silent spectator on the sidelines of her own relationship. It was on a warm April evening that the first bombshell dropped. Claire found a text on Logan's phone, an overly affectionate message from someone named Camila Torres. Her breath caught mid-read, a sickening chill spreading through her chest as the words blurred before her eyes. She stood in the kitchen, phone in hand, trembling, not just from rage or heartbreak, but from the sharp sting of betrayal that pierced before she could even process it. Torn by a mix of curiosity, dread, and guilt, she looked further. The conversation was intimate, peppered with stolen photos and confessions of longing that Claire hadn't heard from Logan, at least not in a very long time. Photos of shared hotel rooms, inside jokes, and secret weekend plans. They painted a vivid picture of a life Claire hadn't known existed. And the worst part? Camila referred to Logan as my escape. Stunned, she confronted him. He insisted it was nothing but a flirtatious mistake, the kind of drunken text exchange that meant absolutely nothing. He laughed a little too nervously, tried to brush it off with a casual, "You know how harmless these things are." Claire felt her stomach twist. Claire wanted to believe him. She truly did, because the alternative, that her husband was indeed cheating, was too painful to bear. She felt uncertain about whether she was just reading too much into an isolated event. She decided to give him the benefit of the doubt, but her heart clenched painfully at the memory of that message. Camila Torres. The name echoed in her mind. The fact was, something had changed. Logan continued traveling, even more often now, to San Francisco or Miami, leaving Claire behind in their enormous Austin home. Days became weeks, without so much as a genuine conversation. He assured her it was only temporary. His tech empire was expanding, but the question kept gnawing at her. Expanding into what? She might have been naive, but she wasn't foolish. She recognized that a wedge was driving them apart, one that looked suspiciously like a woman. The silence between them had grown into a living thing, She could hear it in every dinner eaten alone, feel it in every unanswered message, see it in the way he no longer looked at her when he came home. One evening, Claire confided in her closest friend, Nicole Reynolds, a dear companion since college. Nicole listened intently as Claire poured her heart out. Nicole's dark brown eyes softened with sympathy. She didn't sugarcoat the possibility that Logan was unfaithful, but she also knew the heartbreak that came from jumping to conclusions. "You need to confront him, Claire," she said. "You can't live in this limbo. Either he's going to work on the marriage with you, or he's not. But you deserve the truth." Claire knew her friend was right. At the same time, fear wrestled with her better judgment. Was she ready to hear the truth? If it was the worst possible news, could she endure her marriage disintegrating if he truly was involved with another woman? Throughout that restless night, Claire lay awake in their king-sized bed, staring at the empty space beside her, where Logan only slept on the rare occasions he was home. Her heart thumped with dread at the idea of a confrontation. What if Logan admitted he was cheating? What if he turned the tables on her, blaming her for snooping or for not being supportive enough? The unknown seemed more terrifying than any known heartbreak. After years of believing in the promise of forever, she felt the ground shifting beneath her. She was a wife committed to love, loyalty, and the life they had built together. But no matter how hard she tried, she could not shake the creeping suspicion that everything she held dear was about to collapse. The confrontation Claire had rehearsed in her mind countless times finally happened during a rare weekend when Logan was home. She approached him in the living room, a sprawling space adorned with modern art, plush leather couches, and a panoramic view of Lake Travis. Logan was sipping coffee, scrolling through his phone. His suit jacket hung on the arm of the couch, tie loosened, hair slightly disheveled. He looked every bit the busy, important man with no time for distractions. "Can we talk?" she asked, trying to keep her voice from trembling. Logan glanced up, mild annoyance flickering across his face. "Sure, but make it quick, Claire. I've got to head out to a meeting soon." Claire's nerves were on edge. "I want to know what's going on. With you, with us." He shrugged. "I've told you 1,000,000 times, it's work. My schedule has been insane." "Logan," she pressed, "I saw the text you received from Camila Torres. You promised it was just a mistake, but your behavior hasn't changed. You're never home. You're distant. I need to know. Are you seeing her?" Silence hung between them, growing heavier by the second. Claire watched him carefully, noticing the way his jaw clenched and his eyes darted away. Finally, he sighed dramatically, as though her questions were an inconvenience rather than a legitimate concern. "Claire, I told you that text meant nothing. I keep telling you the same thing. If you can't trust me, that's your problem, not mine." She could hardly believe his tone. It stung, though something else tugged at her. Recognition that he hadn't explicitly denied anything. Instead, he deflected, her heart hammered in her chest. "If it was nothing, why are you always so secretive, Logan? If you've fallen out of love with me, just tell me." He looked away for a long moment, running a hand through his hair. Then he stood up abruptly, phone clutched in one hand. "I don't have time for this right now. I've got an important negotiation downtown. We'll talk later." He was out the door before she could utter another word. Claire stood there, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes, feeling foolish for thinking she could corner him into confessing. Doubt, denial, and heartbreak warred within her. She wanted to hold on to the hope that her marriage was salvageable, but all signs pointed to a growing darkness beneath Logan's polished exterior. Her thoughts kept straying to Camila Torres. Who was this woman who seemed to exist just beneath the surface of every lie Logan had told? Why was Logan so protective of her identity? Claire decided to do something she never imagined she would. She hired a private investigator. It felt drastic, but her gut screamed that she needed answers. If there was more to this story, she had to know. She contacted a discreet agency recommended by her friend Nicole. The investigator, a man named Raymond Ellis, was older, calm, and discreet. Over a quick phone call, he explained that he would quietly follow Logan, document any suspicious behavior, and report back within days. Raymond provided a preliminary update that shattered whatever illusions Claire clung to. Logan wasn't just meeting clients at his late-night dinners. He wasn't just slipping away emotionally. He had physically built another life. He had been spotted with Camila Torres, tall, strikingly beautiful, with cascading dark hair, entering exclusive restaurants, hotels, and even a private penthouse in downtown Austin. The photos weren't crisp, but the intimacy in their body language was undeniable. One showed Logan brushing her hair behind her ear. Another, their hands grazing just before entering an elevator. The pictures were fuzzy, but incriminating enough. A swirl of disbelief and betrayal washed over Claire. Yet, as devastating as it was, part of her felt oddly relieved to finally have proof. At least, she wasn't imagining things. Logan was living a double life. The guilt of distrust lifted, replaced by heartbreak, and something more potent, anger. She had tried to be the loyal wife. She had given him her trust, her devotion, and years of unwavering support. Now she realized he had used that loyalty like a shield to cover his betrayal. Claire confronted him one evening as soon as he walked in. She waited in the foyer, a folder of Raymond's photographs clutched in her hand. Before Logan could set down his briefcase, she thrust the damning evidence at him. He flipped through the photos, and for a moment, his face went pale. His jaw tensed, and Claire saw it, that flicker of guilt before the mask of arrogance slipped back into place. But Logan's shock quickly turned to anger. "You had me followed?" he barked. "This is how little you trust me?" "You haven't given me a single reason to trust you," Claire shot back, her voice trembling. "You lied to me. Logan, look at these photos. I know everything." He closed the folder and tossed it onto a nearby table. His silence was damning. He didn't bother offering any elaborate excuse or apology. Instead, he shrugged, as though cornered. "Fine," he muttered. "I won't insult you with denials anymore. I am seeing Camila. Are you happy now?" Claire's heart felt like it had been impaled. Tears threatened to spill, but she refused to break down in front of him. How could you do this to me, Logan? To us?" He ran a hand over his face, as though her question were a bothersome riddle. "Things change, people change. Do you think I'm the same man you married? The same guy from Asheville? We live in a different world now. I have bigger responsibilities, bigger goals." Her voice cracked. "We took vows. You promised. Promises made in a different context," he interrupted, his eyes cold. "Look, I'm not some starry-eyed dreamer anymore. I've built a reputation, wealth, and a life that requires certain sacrifices. You can't expect me to remain the same small-town guy." His words stung, an undeniable blow to the idealistic foundation of their marriage. She searched his face, hoping for a sign of remorse, but found nothing. Instead, a steely determination glinted in his eyes. It was in that moment she understood. The man she had loved no longer existed. In his place stood a stranger, ruthless, unrepentant, and dismissive of the life they had once built together. Claire's tears finally spilled over. She retreated up the grand staircase, feeling more alone than ever in her own home. She locked herself in the guest bedroom. She couldn't bear to stay in the master suite that now felt haunted by betrayal. She realized that the simplest illusions she'd believed in had collapsed. Their marriage might have only been a stepping stone for Logan's ambition, an accessory to his shining image. Where her love had been real, his had evidently faded, replaced by a thirst for something else: adventure, danger, or the thrill of a new conquest. She remembered Nicole's words, "You deserve the truth." Well, she had it now, and the truth was a blade that cut deeply. In the days following the brutal confession, Claire tried to envision her next move. Part of her wanted to scream at Logan, demand a divorce, and walk away from the opulence that now felt tainted by his lies. Another part, perhaps more vulnerable, still harbored the faint hope that he would come to his senses, realize he was destroying everything for a fleeting affair, and beg for forgiveness. But Logan remained indifferent, rarely even coming home. When he did, they barely acknowledged each other. Then, on a muggy June evening, Logan returned to the house, accompanied by Camila Torres. Claire had been sitting in the living room, numb to the flickering television, when they strolled in. Camila was stunning, wearing a fitted designer dress that accentuated her figure, her hand resting protectively over her midsection. Claire's heart sank at the sight. There was a slight but unmistakable bump. The moment felt surreal, like a twisted dream Claire couldn't wake from. Her grip on the blanket over her lap tightened until her knuckles turned white. She couldn't breathe. not from panic, but from the weight of humiliation pressing down on her chest. "This is my house too," Camila said matter-of-factly, as though she were discussing the weather. "And I have nowhere else to go." Claire looked to Logan, praying this was some sick misunderstanding. But Logan stepped forward, unapologetically calm. "Camila's pregnant," he announced. "It's my child. I promised her I would take care of her. So she's moving in." Claire blinked, struggling to process the words that shattered what remained of her reality. The man she once saw as her anchor now stood aligned with someone else, shielding her like she was the one who belonged. For a moment, Claire felt the world tilt beneath her. "You're throwing this at me out of nowhere," she whispered, voice shaking. Logan exhaled. "It's not out of nowhere. Our marriage hasn't been working, and now Camila is expecting my child. I need to be by her side." Claire stared at him. A heart-wrenching realization surged through her. Her marriage was over. Any pretense of healing or reconciliation had vaporized. "What about me? I'm still your wife. What do you expect me to do now?" Camila eased herself onto the couch, a smug smile curling on her lips. "I suggest you find somewhere else to stay, Claire. This environment is stressful for the baby, and I'd rather not deal with tension." Claire's stomach churned. The audacity. This woman sitting on her couch, speaking to her as if she were the intruder. Claire's anger flared. "How dare you walk into this house and talk to me like that?" Logan raised a hand as if pacifying two unruly children. "Stop it. Look, Claire, let's not pretend anymore. I'll send some staff to help you pack. You'll be taken care of financially, but I think you should leave tonight." The finality of his tone confirmed it. There was no going back. Claire felt a flash of humiliation, heartbreak, and rage. She wanted to scream at him, to ask what she had done to deserve this cruelty. But all that came out was a broken whisper. "You're a monster, Logan." She bolted upstairs, tears streaming, half running, half stumbling as she packed a suitcase in her daze. She fumbled through clothes and memories collected over years of marriage. Where would she even go at this hour? Could she show up at Nicole's? Every item she folded felt like an echo of the life she thought she had. Photos, a honeymoon sweater, a love note tucked in a drawer. Now all of it felt like lies wrapped in fabric. Downstairs, she heard Camila's soft laughter and Logan's low voice, likely discussing how to rearrange the furniture to fit Camila's taste. The absurdity hit her. She was being replaced in real time, like outdated furniture. Clutching her suitcase, she fled downstairs. She couldn't bring herself to look at them. All she caught was Camila's satisfied smirk, confirming Claire's worst fear. She was being erased from her own life. Without a backward glance, Claire stepped into the night, a swirl of cool air and despair surrounding her. The mansion door slammed shut behind her. The sight of her car in the driveway was a brutal reminder. Outside, she was still Mrs. Bennet, the wealthy wife who had it all. But inside, everything had crumbled. Her life had been ripped away in a blink because her husband's mistress was carrying his child. As Claire climbed into the car, she thought of the betrayal, the humiliation, the unknowns ahead. For the first time, she felt utterly powerless, like a stranger in her own existence. Claire drove aimlessly through the city, tears blurring her vision. Part of her wanted to call Nicole, but it was late and shame weighed heavily. A hotel crossed her mind, but even that felt too much. In desperation, she called her brother, Dylan Caldwell, who lived 2 hours away in Houston. Sleepy and alarmed, Dylan answered after several rings. Claire spilled everything, her words trembling. His usually confident voice wavered. "That son of a... You should come down here. I'll get the guest room ready. Stay as long as you need." Though Dylan's offer was comforting, Claire hesitated. She didn't want to be a burden. She also felt, in a strange twist, that running to her brother might make it all too real. Maybe she wanted some space to digest it all alone, to figure out her next step. With trembling hands, she thanked him and said she'd consider it, but that she had to sort her thoughts first. She told him she'd call back soon. By the time she hung up, she found herself parked in front of an upscale lounge near downtown, the Cypress Room. A modern building with sleek black windows and gold lettering. A wave of nostalgia washed over her. Before the marriage began to crumble, she and Logan had attended an event there hosted by an old acquaintance of his, a man named Julian Cross. Also a successful entrepreneur, Julian ran a chain of luxury hotels and private clubs. He had always exuded a subtle air of kindness behind his polished demeanor. He and Logan weren't particularly close. They moved in the same social circles, but had parted ways on multiple business ventures due to conflicting interests. Yet Claire remembered how Julian would always greet her warmly at social gatherings, always with genuine curiosity about her life. She recalled once, at a charity gala, how he had confided in her about his philanthropic dreams, building shelters in underprivileged neighborhoods. She had found him far more compassionate than most millionaires she'd met in Logan's orbit. She sat there in the driver's seat, tears dried but cheeks still stained. Remembering that same charity gala, Julian had politely listened as she talked about her interest in setting up community centers in her old hometown. He had even given her his personal card, telling her to contact him if she ever needed help with a charity event. Now, ironically, she needed help, but of a vastly different sort. Almost on autopilot, she retrieved her purse and found that card. Julian Cross, CEO of Cross Global Retreats. There was a personal phone number scribbled beneath his name. Her mind swirled. Would it be too outrageous to call him now, especially about something so personal and humiliating? Yet at that moment she realized she had no idea where else to go. The idea of sleeping in her car or drifting into a random hotel alone sounded terrifying. She dialed the number, heart pounding. The phone rang 3 times before a groggy but recognizable voice answered. "Hello?" Julian sounded concerned, as though anticipating bad news at such a late hour. "This is Claire Bennett from the charity events." Her voice trembled with uncertainty. There was a brief silence, and then he spoke gently. "Claire? It's quite late. Are you all right?" And in that moment, the floodgates opened. She whispered the entire story, her voice shaking with fresh sobs, how Logan had cheated, how the mistress was pregnant, how they demanded she leave her own home. She hardly knew Julian beyond polite society chatter, but she clung to the faint memory of his kindness. When she finished talking, she realized how ridiculous she must sound, calling an acquaintance in the dead of night, unloading her heartbreak. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly, embarrassment blooming. "I shouldn't have. I don't know who else to call. I'm parked outside the Cypress room, actually. Please, don't worry. I'll figure something." Her rambling ceased when he interrupted, his voice calm yet urgent. "Where exactly are you? Are you alone? You shouldn't be on the street in the middle of the night." She told him the address, tears forming again, because even hearing concern from someone felt overwhelming. "I'm fine." She tried to insist, though her voice betrayed her. "You're not," Julian said firmly. "Stay right there. I'm sending one of my people to escort you into the Cypress room. I own that building. You'll have a room for the night, free of charge. I'll be there as soon as I can." Before she could protest, he ended the call. Claire sat there, stunned, feeling a swirl of relief and confusion. Why was Julian being so generous? They'd barely had more than a few conversations. But she had no time to second-guess his kindness. Within minutes, a well-dressed employee approached her car, gently tapped on her window and guided her inside. The foyer of the Cypress room was grand, with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. The staff member quietly led her to an elevator that whisked them to the 10th floor. Moments later, she found herself in a luxurious suite boasting floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the Austin skyline. Plush furniture and a king-sized bed promised comfort she desperately needed. The employee, introducing himself as Marcus, set her suitcase down with respectful deference. He mentioned that Mr. Cross was on his way and that if she needed anything, she should just dial the front desk. Left alone, Claire sank onto the sofa, hugging a pillow. Her world had imploded in the most humiliating public way possible. Yet here she was, safe for the moment. Thanks to the help of a man she barely knew. Emotions tumbled in confusion, heartbreak, and a curious gratitude. Some 30 minutes later, the room's doorbell chimed. Claire walked over cautiously and opened it to see Julian Cross. He was dressed casually in a black sweater and jeans, his sandy hair slightly tousled as though he had rushed out of bed. Concern etched his refined features. Without a word, he gently ushered her back into the suite, gesturing for her to sit on the sofa. "Claire, I'm so sorry for what you're going through," he said softly. His empathy was almost too much to bear. New tears welled up in her eyes, and she tried to stifle them. "Thank you for letting me stay here. I didn't know who else to call. Julian sank into an armchair opposite her, maintaining a respectful distance. You can stay as long as you need, he insisted. No charge. If you prefer something more private, I have a property outside the city, a vacation home that's not in use right now. It's in a gated community, very secure. If you need a place to gather your thoughts or just escape, it's yours. Claire stared at him, stunned. The kindness of this near stranger contrasted so sharply with the cruelty she had just experienced from her own husband. Overwhelmed, she could only manage a choked, "Thank you." Julian gave a small nod and rose to leave. "I'll let you rest, but I'll check on you tomorrow. If you need anything, Marcus is on call tonight. And Claire, please know, you're not alone. Sometimes life blindsides us, but you'll stand on your own 2 feet again. Until then." He paused, voice steady. "Let me help." As he left, a warmth spread through Claire's chest, a flicker of hope in the midst of overwhelming despair. She curled up on the sofa, staring at the bright city lights outside, and for the first time since she had fled the mansion, she felt safe. Morning arrived with the Austin sun peeking through the skyscrapers. Claire woke up in the plush bed, briefly disoriented by her surroundings, until the events of the previous night came rushing back. She dressed slowly, rummaging through the suitcase she had packed in a frantic rush. Then she stepped out into the hallway, heading downstairs to the elegant lounge for coffee. To her surprise, Julian was already there, sitting at a small table near the window, with a cup of coffee and a pastry in front of him. When he saw her, he stood, greeting her with a gentle smile. "Good morning, Claire. How are you holding up?" She gave a weary shrug, cheeks flushing. "I'm coping, I guess. Thank you for everything you did last night." He gestured to the seat across from him, and she sat down. "I'm sorry to be the one to bring this up," he began carefully, "but have you spoken to Logan or anyone else since you left?" Claire shook her head, the memory still raw. "No, I don't think I can face him yet. He and his mistress basically told me to leave. I guess he'll send me the divorce papers eventually. I'm not sure." Julian leaned back in his chair, a contemplative look crossing his face. "You deserve time to figure out what you want. You don't have to rush, but when you're ready, you may need legal counsel. If you'd like, I can recommend a reputable attorney, someone discreet who won't turn this into a tabloid spectacle." She nodded, her heart heavy but grateful for the guidance. "I would appreciate that." A quiet pause settled between them. Then Julian spoke again, his voice gentle. "I know we aren't close friends, Claire, but I want to help however I can. If you'd rather not stay in the city right now, I can have you taken to the lake house I mentioned. It's a peaceful place, outside the glare of the public eye." Claire thought of the large hollow mansion she had just left, haunted by betrayal, and shuddered. Perhaps a tranquil retreat would do her good. "That sounds wonderful. I could use a little peace right now." Julian pulled out his phone. "I'll make the arrangements. It's completely up to you how long you stay." Later that afternoon, Claire found herself traveling to the Cross Lake House, an hour's drive from Austin. The scenery was breathtaking. Tall pines lined the winding driveway, opening up to a secluded estate with a charming modern cabin perched on a hillside overlooking a shimmering lake. A caretaker named Martha Ellis welcomed Claire warmly, handing her the keys and showing her around. Martha mentioned that Mr. Cross visited occasionally, but the place was mostly vacant. Inside, the cabin was spacious yet cozy, featuring floor-to-ceiling windows that let in abundant natural light, a stone fireplace, and understated decor. It exuded a peaceful energy, far removed from the noise of the city and the chaos of Claire's personal life. On her first night there, Claire found herself sitting on the wooden deck, gazing at the calm lake waters under a blanket of stars. The trauma of Logan's betrayal lingered in her chest, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a gentle sense of possibility. She had left behind years of marriage. Yes, but that meant in some way she was starting anew. The thought both scared and comforted her. Over the next few days, Claire tried to keep her mind occupied. She did yoga by the lakeside, read books she had never finished, cooked simple meals in the cabin's well-stocked kitchen. Now and then she texted Nicole, who was furious and demanded to visit. Claire postponed that visit, saying she needed time to rest and reflect. Julian called every couple of days to check on her well-being. Always polite, never intrusive. True to his word, he also referred her to a top-tier lawyer named Vanessa Hensley. On one phone call, Vanessa explained the basics of the divorce process, potential settlement options, and the importance of documenting everything, especially because there was a mistress carrying Logan's child. Though daunting, hearing a professional voice guiding her felt empowering. She realized she was not as powerless as she had believed. One evening, after a particularly rough day filled with mental battles, replaying images of Logan and Camila in her house, Claire found herself at the lake's edge, skipping stones across the water. A sleek SUV pulled into the driveway. She turned to see Julian stepping out, dressed in casual chinos and a light sweater. Surprised, she stood up, brushing off her jeans. "I hope I'm not intruding," he said with a gentle smile. "I was in the area for a site inspection at another property and thought I'd drop by to see how you're doing." He looked around, the warmth in his eyes reflecting genuine concern. "Is this place comfortable enough for you?" Claire nodded, touched by his consideration. "It's perfect, peaceful, and beautiful." They ended up sharing a simple meal prepared by Martha. During dinner, Claire opened up about her emotional whirlpool, the anger, the heartbreak, and the occasional guilt for not seeing Logan's betrayal sooner. Julian listened intently, rarely interjecting, just letting her talk. She found it unexpectedly cathartic. After finishing the meal, they walked out onto the deck again, the night sky overhead. "I might not know exactly what you're going through," Julian said softly, "but I do understand heartbreak. I once lost someone I loved dearly." He paused, looking down, as though the memory still pained him. "It was different. She passed away due to illness, but I remember feeling that numbness, that sense of your life unraveling." Claire's eyes widened. She had heard rumors of a tragedy in Julian's past, but never the details. Compassion flooded her. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "I didn't know." He offered a faint smile. "It's been years, but some pains never fully leave. They just become part of you. You learn to live again," Julian said, "though it feels impossible at first." His admission touched her deeply. It was a reminder that everyone carried hidden scars. The wealthy, the successful, they weren't immune to life's cruelties. In that moment, Claire realized how safe she felt around Julian, how his presence exuded a calm that steadied her unraveling nerves. "I'm trying to find my footing," she murmured, hugging her arms around herself. "I spent so long supporting Logan's dreams, I barely remember my own." Julian turned to face her. "What did you love before meeting him?" She blinked, recalling her younger self, her passion for community work, her fascination with interior design, her dream of opening a youth center in Asheville. "I wanted to do social outreach, especially for teens and single mothers. I came from a modest background, and I've seen how one chance can change someone's life." He nodded slowly, something thoughtful flickering behind his eyes. "You were building others up before anyone thought to build you up," he said quietly. "That says a lot about who you are." He listened, his expression thoughtful. "Then, maybe this is your chance to revisit that dream. You have talents, Claire. Don't let them go to waste." She felt a stir in her chest, a spark of something akin to hope. The words landed deeper than he probably realized. No one had asked her that in years. Not without an agenda, not without comparison. And certainly, not with that kind of sincerity. In the wake of heartbreak, hearing someone validate her aspirations was like a breath of fresh air. Maybe the future wasn't just a looming void. Maybe, with support and newfound courage, she could rediscover herself. They spoke until the sky was ink black, sharing stories, discussing possibilities. Julian told her about losing someone once. Years ago, a woman he had loved deeply but had to let go of due to terminal illness. He didn't speak of her often, he said, but something about Claire made it feel okay to remember. Claire listened in silence, struck by how pain could shape people into something softer rather than harder. The space between them didn't feel empty anymore, it felt safe. And for the first time since Logan's betrayal, Claire went to bed feeling a cautious optimism bloom within her. Back in Austin, the tabloids had started buzzing about Logan Bennett, the flashy tech entrepreneur rumored to have impregnated his mistress. Claire tried to ignore it, but she couldn't evade the world forever. Her phone lit up with messages from acquaintances and even some press inquiries. She kept her circle limited. Only Nicole and Dylan were updated about her whereabouts. They offered unwavering support, though both worried about her isolation. Meanwhile, as Vanessa Hensley delved into the details of Logan's assets, she discovered that he had moved certain finances around in an apparent attempt to shield them from potential divorce settlements. There were shell companies, hidden real estate investments, and suspicious overseas accounts. Vanessa urged Claire to keep a low profile, but to remain firm. Claire had never wanted a vicious legal battle. She wanted what was fair, but mostly she just wanted closure. New beginning. Yet it seemed Logan would not make it simple. One afternoon, her phone buzzed. It was Logan. Against her better judgment, she answered. His voice was clipped. "Claire, I spoke to my lawyers. We're drafting an agreement. I trust you'll be reasonable." "Reasonable?" The word sparked her anger. "Reasonable, like how you and your mistress kicked me out of my own home? Or are you referring to trying to hide assets so you don't have to pay me what I'm owed?" There was a momentary pause. "Don't start with accusations. I've taken care of you for years." She laughed bitterly. "Yes, you've taken care of me while you cheated, fathered another woman's child, and demanded I leave the moment she walked in." What a shining example of devotion. The tension crackled. Finally, Logan muttered, "I'll be in touch. Don't push me, Claire. You won't like the outcome." He hung up. She stared at her phone, hands trembling. Any residual illusions of an amicable settlement vanished. Logan was determined to keep his fortune intact, possibly under Camila's influence. The very thought made Claire's chest tighten, but she reminded herself she had a competent attorney. She would not be bullied. Days later, Vanessa called Claire with more unsettling news. Logan's legal team was proposing a meager settlement, an insult considering his net worth. And rumor had it, he was even preparing a smear tactic, claiming Claire had known about the affair and encouraged him to live separately. It was a blatant lie, but it revealed how dirty he was willing to fight. Claire closed her eyes, exhaling a shaky breath. She was done playing the victim. If Logan wanted a war, she would defend herself with everything she had. She might not have the financial muscle he did, but she had the truth. And she had a skilled lawyer who believed in her case. While she navigated the legal quagmire, Julian occasionally visited or called. He never pried, he simply offered support. Their connection grew in quiet, subtle ways. A shared dinner, a walk by the lake, late-night talks about life's unpredictability. Claire found solace in his presence. She discovered new layers to the gentleman behind the affluent facade. Julian surprised her with an idea. "I've been thinking about your passion for outreach," he began, eyes bright. "One of my companies has a charitable arm. We're always looking for new philanthropic initiatives. If you're open to it, we could partner with you to start a community center. Maybe in Asheville?" Claire's mouth fell open. It felt too good to be true. She stammered, That's enormous. I wouldn't even know where to start. Are you sure?" He nodded earnestly. "I'm sure. The logistics can be sorted out. We have the funds, and you have the heart and vision. It could be a pilot project, with you at the helm." Claire blinked away sudden tears. For so long she had shelved her own dreams, made herself smaller to fit into someone else's narrative. Now someone was asking her to lead, not follow. Overwhelmed, she felt tears prick her eyes. For so long, her dreams had been submerged under Logan's ambitions. Now someone believed in her enough to offer not just moral support, but the resources to realize her vision. "I'd love to," she whispered, gratefulness coursing through her. "Thank you." Julian's eyes softened. "We'll make it happen, together." Those words echoed in her mind, together. She wasn't alone in this fight or in her future endeavors. Though she had lost so much, life had a strange way of opening new doors, and perhaps new connections she had never anticipated. But the path forward wouldn't be seamless. The very next day, as they began drafting the framework for the center, Claire hit her first wall. A zoning issue, then a permit holdup. An anonymous complaint had even delayed an early walkthrough. She suspected where that had come from, but chose to focus on progress. Every setback reminded her. This wasn't just about opening a building, it was about rebuilding herself. As the divorce case proceeded, Logan grew more belligerent. One day, Vanessa informed Claire that Logan's lawyer had presented a particularly harsh set of demands. Logan wanted to finalize the divorce quickly, offering a lump sum far below what she was legally entitled to, hoping Claire would crack under pressure. It became clear that he was also hiding behind the unborn child, using that situation to garner sympathy among his inner circle. Enough was enough. Claire decided it was time to face Logan in person. She arranged a meeting at Vanessa's office. The tension was palpable the moment Logan walked into the conference room, wearing an impeccably tailored suit accompanied by his smug lawyer. Camila was absent, but had apparently become a fixture on the gossip blogs, flaunting her baby bump and her future Mrs. Bennet status. Claire hadn't seen Logan face to face since that horrible night. He looked older, more stressed, though he tried to mask it behind a stern expression. She felt a jolt of conflicting emotions: anger, sadness, and an odd sense of pity for the man who had let greed and lust erode his humanity. The negotiations started with formalities. Logan's lawyer delivered his spiel about how Claire was adequately compensated for her years as Mrs. Bennet. Vanessa countered with evidence of Logan's financial manipulations and the possibility of contesting them in court, which could severely damage his public reputation. Tensions escalated. Voices rose. Finally, Logan spoke. "Claire, we don't have to drag this through the mud. You'll get a comfortable settlement. Just sign, and we can both move on." She stared at him evenly, refusing to be intimidated. "Comfortable for who, Logan? For you and your mistress, who took my home and my marriage? No. We'll go to court if we must. I won't be bullied." The fury in his eyes was unmistakable. But Claire no longer cowered. She had discovered her resolve, nurtured by the realization that she deserved more than scraps of his conscience. She had a new life budding, with or without his money. In fact, as painful as it was, she realized she didn't need him or his fortune at all. Vanessa's voice pierced the silence. "We'll see you in court then," she announced, finality in her tone. "Unless your side is willing to offer a fair settlement, my client is prepared to proceed. And I'd advise caution. The press is already sniffing around. Divulging details of Mr. Bennet's financial mischief would not play well for his standing in the tech community." Logan's lawyer tensed. Logan glared at Claire one more time, but there was no trace of the loving man she had once known, just arrogance and bitterness. He stormed out, leaving a flurry of tension behind. After the meeting, Claire sat alone in Vanessa's office, feeling both drained and oddly triumphant. She might have lost the fairy tale illusion of marriage, but she was no longer cowering under Logan's influence. She was forging her own path now, and ironically, the possibility of a fully independent future began to excite her. Months passed. The legal battle intensified and then finally settled, perhaps due to the mounting threat of public exposure. Logan's side yielded more reasonable terms, enough for Claire to comfortably start anew. She didn't walk away with half his empire. Nor did she want to. Her priority was to free herself from the toxic ties that bound her to Logan. The day the divorce was finalized in court, Claire left the building feeling simultaneously exhausted and liberated. She removed her wedding ring on the courthouse steps, a quiet gesture that signified the end of a painful chapter. She had loved Logan once, but that man was gone, replaced by someone she hardly recognized. Not long after, gossip columns flared with sensational headlines. "Millionaire Logan Bennett finalizes divorce as mistress awaits baby." It should have stung, but Claire found she could read the headlines without collapsing. She had found her own place in the city, a modest but charming apartment that she decorated with warm, welcoming touches. But she still spent weekends at the Cross Lake house, where Julian joined her whenever his busy schedule allowed. Together, they began making serious plans for the community center in Asheville, a project Claire titled Second Chances. True to his word, Julian provided the financial backbone, while Claire worked with local organizations to develop programs for teenagers, single mothers, and others in need. The project gave her a sense of purpose and energy that replaced the void left by her disastrous marriage. As the months rolled on, whispers started in their circle. Was there something more than friendship between Julian Cross and Claire Bennett, the newly divorced wife of Logan Bennett? Even Nicole, who finally visited the lake house, teased Claire about the sparks she noticed between them. Claire blushed, insisting they were just good friends. Yet deep down, she couldn't ignore the growing feeling in her heart. Julian was respectful, never crossing boundaries, never pressuring her. He seemed genuinely committed to the idea that Claire needed time to heal. But the closeness they shared, the laughter, the late-night confessions, the mutual excitement over the community center, built a tender bond. In the quiet corners of her mind, she sometimes allowed herself to imagine a future with him. Though, she quickly reminded herself to tread carefully. Then came the opening day of Second Chances, a bright Saturday morning in Asheville. Julian, in a crisp white shirt, stood beside Claire as they welcomed the first group of teens entering the newly renovated building. Once an abandoned municipal hall, now transformed into a vibrant space filled with art, computers for job searches, and counseling areas. Moments before the ceremony began, Claire caught sight of a familiar face standing at the edge of the crowd. Her breath hitched. It was one of the teen girls from the early focus group months ago. The girl had once been withdrawn, skeptical, barely able to make eye contact. Now she stood proudly in line, ready to enter the center with wide eyes and cautious hope. Claire's chest tightened. This was real. It was working. Community members flocked to witness the ribbon-cutting ceremony. The local press was there, capturing every moment. After the official speeches, including Claire's heartfelt words about how one helping hand can change a life, the mayor cut the ribbon. Applause erupted, cameras flashed, and for one suspended moment, Claire looked out at the crowd, blinking through tears, and saw not just the people, but the future. She spotted Nicole beaming, Julian watching her with quiet pride, and behind them, a group of volunteers already greeting the first wave of attendees. Tears of joy welled up in Claire's eyes. She thought about her younger self, dreaming of making a difference. That dream had been buried during her marriage, but now it was reborn, stronger than ever. Standing to the side, Julian watched her with quiet admiration. When the crowd began to disperse into the building, he approached her. "Claire," he said softly, "congratulations. This is your vision come to life." She met his gaze, heart fluttering. "I couldn't have done it without you." He shook his head. "I just provided the resources. This is your passion, and I'm so proud of you." In that moment, it happened almost naturally. He leaned forward, and she rose onto her toes, meeting his lips in a tender, almost tentative kiss. It wasn't a kiss of passion, it was one of understanding, mutual healing, and cautious hope. The world seemed to fall away. It was a kiss free from guilt or betrayal. A kiss signifying a new start for both of them. They parted slowly, each breathless, gazing at each other with mutual wonder. No words were needed. The glimmer in their eyes spoke volumes. About second chances, about healing from heartbreak, about daring to trust someone again. It wasn't a fairy tale moment. It was real, earned, and all the more beautiful because of it. As they rejoined the gathered crowd, their intertwined hands hinted at a future yet unwritten. A future rooted in respect, kindness, and the hope that love, when honest and true, could indeed bloom anew, even after the darkest storms. Word arrived that Camila had given birth to a baby boy. The press hailed Logan Bennett as a devoted father, showcasing pictures of him beaming beside Camila in a private hospital suite. Claire read the news with surprising calm. The sting of betrayal was still there, but the wound had begun to heal. She no longer defined herself by Logan's actions. She had found a new sense of identity, a new mission, and a quietly growing love that promised to treat her far better than her past ever had. One evening, as she sat by the lake with Julian, she reflected on how drastically life had changed. In just a year, she'd gone from a devastated wife to an independent woman, spearheading a philanthropic venture she had always dreamed of. The betrayal that once threatened to destroy her had instead propelled her toward growth. And sitting beside the man who had helped her reimagine her strength, Claire smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because she had survived. And in her survival, she had bloomed. In that sense, Logan had, ironically, given her the greatest gift of all: freedom. Freedom to rediscover her dreams, to build something meaningful, and to open her heart to a man who truly saw and cherished her. Dear friend, thank you for joining Claire on this emotional roller coaster, a journey marked by betrayal, heartbreak, resilience, and ultimately, healing. Her story is a reminder that even when life knocks us flat, when the people we trust break us in ways we never expected, we still get to choose how we rise. Sometimes, the end of one chapter, no matter how brutal, is the exact beginning we needed. When a cheating husband and his pregnant mistress tried to erase Claire from her own life, she didn't let it define her. Instead, she built something new, from the ground up. With the support of one kind soul and the courage to believe in herself again, she found purpose, passion, and the kind of love that honors who she truly is. And maybe you needed to hear that today. Maybe you've been through something that left you shattered, questioning everything. But as the Stoics remind us, we don't control what happens, only how we respond. And you too are capable of turning pain into power, of choosing growth when all you want to do is give up. Like Claire, you are not broken, you are being shaped. And one day, you'll look back and realize the wreckage was actually a rebuild in disguise. If Claire's story touched your heart or gave you the strength to take just one more step forward, I hope you'll support this channel. Tap like if it resonated with you, share it with someone who needs a little light in their dark luck. And subscribe for more stories that remind us we are never truly alone. Your presence here means more than you know. Let's keep shining a light on hope together.